keep a little optimism.
Subscribe, leave a voicemail, and share the show with a brother.
Huey, get us out of here!
Time to abandon ship.
It's great to be in the Empire today.
Star Wars Escape Pod is the pod for you. As the Republic's choice of podcast anywhere in the galaxy.
If you are tuning in right now, don't go anywhere. Leave a review and make it a good one.
Empire today. Empire today. I thought that was a pretty good take. Pray I don't alter my performance any further.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod and another episode of Cantina Banter, where we hang out and just do some casual Star Wars chat with really no strong heading or rails to stay on, but we do have a bit of a compass this evening, and joining us tonight is friendly and familiar voices. We got Blake and Darian. Hello, boys.
Hello there. Sakuragar.
Hello, boys. All right, so big news. I mean, this is being talked about a lot, but I did publish out a Launchpad episode on this. So if anyone is subscribed to Launchpad and actually listens to Launchpad, you may have heard the news. And as far as Star Wars Escape Pod goes, I published out a Lightspeed episode on this. I guess by the time this drops, it'll have been probably a week. But yeah, Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down from her role, and this has been heating up the headlines for a little bit. So we're just gonna sit down and do a bit of a chat about that today, and kind of whatever else comes up. But maybe we'll start with you, Darian. Like, what were your initial feelings when you read the news?
Well, I think I misunderstood some of it because she's leaving for producing. I thought she was producing with Lucasfilm. That was my take on it originally. So it seemed more like a musical chairs game than anything.
I think that's just unspecified. There's no information if she's going to continue to produce under Lucasfilm or go off to do her own thing. Because, who was she producing under before she joined Lucasfilm? Do we know? Yeah,
she has her own company that she came up with, which was listed in the StarWars.com article. I'm trying to remember the name. I'm just looking for it here. But she came up with a company with her now husband and Steven Spielberg. I forget if it was Amblin or if it was another company. It may have been another company, but.
Oh yeah, I was actually just reading it. As co-founder of Amblin Entertainment.
Oh, there you go. It is Amblin. Okay.
With Steven Spielberg and Frank Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall. Yeah.
Chances are she's going to go back to that, but I assume the door will always be open for her to produce Star Wars films.
Oh yeah,
everything going forward.
Yeah, and I feel like at the Disney company, it'll probably just be a door that remains open. You know.
I would think so. I feel like after being there that long, she's earned the ability to produce it. She's a great producer.
Yeah. I mean, she's produced some of the big Hollywood
most memorable
hits.
films of all time.
Yeah, when people think of the era of good movies, like she was a producer in that time period and produced a great many of them, right?
Yeah.
But if a lot of those movies are movies done by directors that are kind of forceful in their own productions, like they do part of the producing, she's been a great facilitator for those. And I don't mean to take away from her accomplishments because clearly, if you're involved with that many banger films,
they must like working with you. Yeah,
exactly. You have to be doing a lot of stuff right. So I don't mean to make it sound like she's a figurehead.
Right. No. Yeah. It's hard work. Yeah. It's definitely a lot of hard work. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day. But this whole thing has been talked about and rumored about for years.
10 years
by fans. Yeah, I feel like ever since The Last Jedi came out,
which is, man, we're not too far off from a 10-year anniversary, right?
We're not too far off.
We just had a 10-year anniversary of Force Awakens.
We did, yes. Yeah, so we're 1 year away from, because that movie came out at the end of 2017. It was every other year, right? Because it was Rogue One, and then it was 2015 was Force Awakens, 2016 was Rogue One, 2017 was Last Jedi. in December.
So do you guys think then if you were to say that she's going to retire because of, say, Last Jedi or whatever for 8 years straight, does that count as calling it? I feel like
I don't think so. No, I don't think that's how it works. Not for me anyways.
Yeah.
Go away, Mike Zero.
No, we love Mike Zero.
Mike Zero.
Leave Mike Zero out of this.
That guy cracks me up. It's like, but yeah, from the time of that movie onwards, I feel like there's been this fan calling in circles of like, okay, this was a big deal for me when that movie didn't do well, and I want to see a leadership change, and and then it just kind of carried on, right? Like, and then it's like, okay, then Solo flop happened, then then the Rise of Skywalker happened, and I feel like it just didn't really get any better for a lot of people. And then
we can't forget about the fact that Dave Filoni was there this entire time.
Yeah.
And everyone has loved his work, especially in that time period.
Right.
So and he trained under George, so everyone couldn't help but think, why doesn't Dave do it?
Right. Yeah. And this is, and that's kind of I guess the big news is, and there's probably some people that aren't happy. I know for sure that there's not people happy. I've seen the tweets, right?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually a little bit curious about this because
I'll get into it.
In my little bubble, people love Dave and people love Dave's work. So.
Yeah. I feel the same, but yeah, I'll get into that in just a moment. But I feel like there's a good couple years there where it's like there's this toxicity built up about this person in doing her job, and it's like, okay, there's some responsibility to be shared there, but it doesn't mean she's completely, it's not like it's all her fault type thing, right? And there's got to be some grace there, but she did see through some pretty big successes on the Disney Plus side. We had The Mandalorian come after. Sure, the sequels didn't wrap up very well, and Solo was a box office flop, but you had three very.
I think that was a great movie, and it deserved.
Yeah,
more.
I agree. Solo
and Rogue
was.
One was a success.
Yeah, and so I really enjoyed Solo, and
success after refilming 60% of the movie.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. That is one of my favorite Star Wars movies, but 60% is a major refilm.
True, but maybe that means she made the right decision.
She did,
because it ended up being a good film.
I feel like she did. I feel like that was her call to make, right? With getting, because otherwise the movie would have come out and would have been not only a box office flop, but it would have been also a bad movie. I think the upside is that it was a great movie that was sadly a box office flop.
Wait, you're talking about
Solo, yeah.
Okay.
But when it comes to Disney Plus, that's where things turned around a little bit. We had The Mandalorian, her putting trust in Dave and John to make such a great show there. And we had Tony Gilroy's Andor project. That was awesome as well. Not everything's been a stellar hit on Disney Plus, but they've been throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see what sticks. And I can see I've had my own criticisms about certain shows that they've done, but not everything's going to be amazing.
And I think it's also worth pointing out the fact that coming off of it being a franchise under one head honcho, George, it was a time period of a lot of trying to find its own footing.
Yeah, for sure. And that is I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind here is when George, it's important for a lot of people to kind of remember that time period where Lucasfilm was an indie company, right? Mm-hmm. This is a small company. This is an indie filmmaking company specifically created for George Lucas's own movies.
Yeah. And
there's not a whole lot really there other than the fact that some of those movies have been incredibly popular within the pop culture space, namely Indiana Jones and Star Wars, right? And so when you have a multi-billion-dollar company come to you and say
Willow.
Come on. When you have a multi-billion company come and buy your company from you, and that's a big deal, and he obviously cared very much about his company, and he, in one interview with Charlie Rose, described those Star Wars movies as his children because he put so much love and time into them that's how he feels about them. That's how he felt about them. So giving that up is a big deal. And, a natural course of action, I think, when you're George Lucas is I want to make sure that somebody I know and trust who is also trusted by this company, buying my company, is going to be okay with this person leading that company, And for him, it was Kathleen Kennedy. He's been friends with her for years, well over 30, 40 years at this point.
And her track record is...
And her track record is insane. She's a great producer. Mm-hmm. For the time, it made sense, right? It made sense to have somebody like that in the chair. Now, I guess the question is...
appointed
before
the Disney acquisition?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and that's kind of why, you know, I bring it up, because it was a bit of a power move. It's like, okay, well, I'm selling the company, but this is the woman you want or have in charge when you buy this company, right? And so she's put in a bit of a difficult position, because for the first time ever, Lucasfilm is now under the pressure and under the gun a little bit from Disney, who has very high standards of annual box office revenue. They're the ones with the money now. They're the ones with the supply, giving Lucasfilm the funding to make the movies. It's no longer 20th Century Fox. It's now
and a lot
Disney.
Of independent funding.
And a lot of independent funding, because a lot of it came from George himself.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a completely different job. You know, George is now giving up his seat, yes, but it's now turned into a completely different job altogether. And that, I think, is the challenge. That it's not just like somebody's taken over the seat that's still warm. It's like it's a completely different car. It's a different vehicle that she's driving now at this point. And I think that's where a lot of people felt that shift. It's like, okay, this doesn't feel like the same company that it used to be. And they're right. You know, it isn't. It's now a different company. It's now owned by a different company.
Incorporated.
And a lot of heat kind of came down on Kathleen Kennedy. And it's like, it's kind of too bad, because like, yeah, sure, not everything's been perfect. But I mean, like, you know, even when George Lucas was running his own company, I mean, look how many people hated half the movies he did.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And it's like, dude, you know, so I can sympathize, but I can also...
It really actually goes before the prequels, too. It started with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
To be fair, Yub Nub, you guys don't remember Yub Nub. That was atrocious. That was an abomination.
I know the Yub Nub
I remember Yub Nub very well. Thank you very much. And I prefer Celebration finale.
I'm there with you.
What about Jedi Rocks?
Yeah. Dude, Phil is like screaming at me on the other end right now. He's like...
He's a Yub Nub
He's
fan,
a Yub Nub guy. Through and through, he's a Yub Nub guy. But yeah, I mean, and then, you know, here we are today, and yet all along, I think a lot of people have been saying, like, Dave's the guy. Like, Dave spent so much time learning from George Lucas that it makes sense for him to be in that seat. But at the same time, it's a different seat to be in. And it's like, you need that corporate side of things, that technical knowledge and the politics in that world. It's a different world that Lucasfilm is now part of since that transition. So I think what at least what I've been hoping for, because I know I've told you this, but like, I've always kind of thought they should split the role, you know, because I think the producer side of the job is like a great...
Someone read your text or your tweet.
I don't know. I think it's just an obvious thing, man. This position should be split into two jobs. Like, somebody should be driving the creative side of Lucasfilm, and then somebody should be handling the business side of Lucasfilm. Yeah. And I feel like it's a lot
for one person to do both of those things.
It is. And when you are handling both things, it can get complicated, and then there's a lot of heat on that person if something doesn't work, because you're under the gun from all this Disney politics, but then you're also under the gun from the fans.
Dave has a scapegoat. I'm like, that's the best we could do with the budget we had.
Exactly.
As a fandom, we've never been good at giving blame to where it actually should go.
Oh, right.
Today, I heard somebody giving Dave Filoni shit for the Acolyte, and it's like,
well, there you go. There you go.
Got in there literally at the last minute and was like, okay, well, like, you have to correct these couple things when we don't have time for anything else. But everybody's like, it was his fault. It's
right.
Like, how is it? How is it? He had nothing to do with that show. Like, I mean, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting though. I mean, I will say that. I mean, this is something at least I've been very hopeful for, that someday Dave gets the chance to really, you know, drive the vehicle, and now he's been given the keys to the car, and it's like, I can't wait to see what he does next.
Me
you
too,
know?
but pressure's on, and this is my concern, because even as you just pointed out, even George the Master had the populace turn against him. So how long does Dave have before the tide turns? That's my concern.
It's already happening.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
That's the thing, right? Like, and to get into what we were saying earlier about that reaction that people have about the whole Dave Filoni thing. I've seen the tweets, you know, and people are like, oh, why Dave Filoni? And
people say, why Dave Filoni?
Well, yeah, because I think it's like what you were saying, Darian.
Who
like,
do they have in mind that would be a better fit?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like, it's like what Darian was saying about, like, people are pointing blame at a particular individual for something that they have nothing to do with, and there's no sense in the matter, right? And I think people want somebody to blame, and he's now going to be in that hot seat, and it's like, okay, well, he's had a number of years to now get familiarized with how the reaction could be towards certain things, and now he's going to be the guy green lighting a lot of these creative projects, whatever era they decide to focus on next. There's a few for him to choose from. And I can't wait to see what he does, but I can't think of a better fit. Like,
fix the High Republic.
Yeah, I'm honestly, like, I cannot think of a better person to do that job, right?
Especially knowing how integral he was at fixing the prequels for so many people. And if he could do that, I feel like, well, as far as Star Wars goes, he can do pretty much anything. But
I think Favreau could give him a run for his money, because I think Favreau.
But he is a OT guy. I'm not sure he wants to touch the prequels.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and John, whenever you see behind the scenes videos of John and Dave talking together, John is always very complimenting of Dave's knowledge of the world, because even though John is an amazing storyteller, he's less familiar with the world and the philosophy behind Star Wars.
And he did make one horrendous misstep by giving Rodriguez carte blanche to just do whatever he wanted with the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, so
that was Favreau's decision? Or who was that?
I'm sure he probably vouched for it, but Robert has actually been within the familiarity of the Lucasfilm company for quite some time. It was actually in the early, or maybe the late 90s or the early 2000s, when George had given a speech or a bit of a seminar at Skywalker Ranch about digital filmmaking. And Robert was one of those people. James Cameron was there. Zack Snyder was there.
Was he there because of like Spy Kids or something? Because he was.
No, this was before Spy Kids.
This was before Spy Kids.
And so that's kind of where I'm getting at, is like he was there to hear the knowledge and the push of, this is a new era that we're entering into as filmmakers. Like, this is a new phase of creative time to really stretch some different muscles here and use these tools that are available to us, and this is going to change everything. That was the whole thing, right? And and then he goes off and makes Spy Kids. Zack Snyder goes off and makes 300, and James Cameron goes off and did some planning for Avatar, which took a long time.
So it's after Titanic then.
Yeah, this is around when Titanic came out, but the Avatar idea kind of predates Titanic, but it was very interesting to know that, and I was like, oh wow, so like Robert's been around for a while, and like Spy Kids, I have good memories of Spy Kids.
The first two,
yeah, but yeah, I think his familiarity with the technology and the technology side of filmmaking really is like it's a skill, because if you have a filmmaker that can't understand how to perceive a story that doesn't exist because it's being made later, the story can fall apart, right? And then it can also run into production challenges and stuff when it's like, oh no, that's not what I was thinking. And, tons of money is spent on trying to come up with ideas, and it just goes to waste because they're changing their mind all the time. And this happens a lot. But here's a guy who kind of understands the process, right?
Well, and he proved himself on season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Oh yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just like,
he set that bar so high. So it just, because you see him do something like that episode, and then you get the Vespa scene in Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, like, how is this the same person?
But yeah.
Is it just like racing scenes?
Well,
does he struggle
Rodriguez
with racing
always
scenes?
Does that mix of, like, he'll do something so dark and gritty and grounded, even though it's like about vampires or something, and then he'll put in something just completely goofy that cuts that tension. It seems like Book of Boba Fett, he just wanted to cut the tension.
It is worth remembering that Jon Favreau wrote the whole show. So it's not actually for Book of Boba. Like,
Jon Favreau wrote it.
Jon Favreau wrote it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So the story is not necessarily Robert's story. He's the director who's telling the story. And I think a lot of people know at this point, it's like when you get into that franchise world, it's the producers and stuff driving the narrative. It's not necessarily the director that comes in for one episode in the week and directs it, right? Like, it's like you get the showrunners, you got the directors.
Not Book of Boba.
No, I'm talking about the whole Book of Boba Mandalorian space. The showrunners being Dave, John, they're the planners, right? Mm-hmm. They hired Robert to come in, direct an episode. Season 2 is a big hit, but he didn't write it. And then, but he pitched the idea. He pitched the idea of like, this is how we bring Boba into the story. He didn't write, I don't think he wrote that story though, but Book of Boba, fully written by John and then Dave.
That's what Dave's got to do
episodes.
next. He's got to fix Boba Fett.
So
Okay, but if Favreau wrote, you've got this biker swoop gang full of cyborg modded.
Because that sounds cool.
Yeah. On paper, that sounds great. What we got was kind of like
Spy
emos
Kids
on colorful Vespas.
We just got Spy Kids 3 with better rendering.
I've never seen any of those movies. I don't get these.
We'll watch it after this show.
It sounds cool. Like it sounds cool in theory, but in reality, it just doesn't execute well, no matter how good of a director somebody is. Like
did Cyberpunk, like 2017.
Yeah, to me it doesn't.
Did that just come out? Like around that time?
No, I thought it was a long time ago. No, like to me, it screams like Underworld Coruscant. That's what the cyber
sure.
part. You know, like I don't
doesn't
really
make sense on Tatooine.
No, it doesn't make sense on Tatooine. Say what?
That whole sequence was done in Shadows of the Empire in the video games and whatnot.
Vespa chase?
Well, it wasn't Vespas. It was swoops.
Right.
Swoops, yeah.
It wasn't KOTOR as well. It's swoop bikes.
Yeah,
right.
So it's been done. It's been done great in Star Wars, and I think that was what he looked at. He's like, okay, well, the gritty, dark version's been done. Let's make it goofy.
I think that the goofy part is whoever thought giving them like Star Wars e-scooters was a good idea, right? Like I don't know.
I know, but if you take that part out of that scene and you give them like the swoop bikes that are supposed to be
like
on
choppers,
yeah, wouldn't that have been awesome?
They'd also
probably
have to make the characters not think spinning is a cool trick.
Spinning as a cool trick would have been better.
But anyway, all I'm saying is like, you know, like the general blame is like, you know, Robert this, Robert that, but then also it's like, well, he's not actually the singular guy that's responsible for how that came out.
The final brushstroke made those scooters the rainbow of like 70s sparkle paint Vespas.
Who knows, right? I mean, it's a different world than when George Lucas was writing, directing, and producing and paying for his own movies. Like he was the guy who just made every decision. But nowadays, it's like it's like a party of people making these calls, and it's like Robert might just be, he's the director, so he's the guy responsible for directing the actors. He might not necessarily have anything to do with the design of these ships and like the look of these characters. That's all Doug. Like that's all the Lucasfilm art department. That's then sent to the showrunners. Dave and John have a creative input there.
Have input on the Vespas?
Doug has been in the Lucasfilm art department for a little while now, since I think Force Awakens, and now he's the head of Industrial Light and Magic's or / Lucasfilm's like art department, which they come up with all the concepts for everything. But yeah, it's a complicated space, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, it didn't execute well.
I choose to believe that Favreau did not make that decision because he was on set near the end of that filming and he freaked out. And there's like photos of him yelling on set. So I choose to believe that he was surprised by it.
I would love to hear that recording.
There's just photos. I don't think there's an actual recording.
Yeah.
But you could see him like.
Yeah.
Oh man. But I guess to bring it back around, do we think that Dave can recover it?
I think so. I think there's a chance if he keeps grounded and gives us a mix of the different times. I think fans overall will be more happy than not. I don't think you can really make the Star Wars fandom happy right now.
Not entirely.
And people have to remember she's going to have a fingerprint in what's going on for quite a while left.
Well, those two shows we mentioned. I don't know what past
Starfighter and Mando. Yeah. And then also Ahsoka season 2, Maul Shadow Lord. I mean, there's going to be a bit of a fingerprint there.
4.
Yeah. Anything that was basically currently in production is, you know, she'll probably see it through from a business perspective, I think. But
Dawn of the Jedi.
Okay. So that's
early on.
That's right? That like there's no a greenlit script yet.
Oh, okay.
So
was it officially?
Well, they just announced that they would be
the title?
working with James, right? So James Mangold's the guy who's supposed to be coming up with the pitch for this show or this movie.
Celebration, they said something about it.
Yeah, and like these days, it's like they always. I'm really not a fan of these pre-green lit announcements because it's just
It's
almost
a
like
tease
it's
of
like
something that may never show up.
yes, yeah, and it happens a lot where it's like it should happen behind closed doors where it's within the creative engine it's like there ideas are pitched and then ideas are killed and that's okay. That's like that's part of the process. But when you start
when it's public,
when you start publicizing that at events like Star Wars Celebration, it's like you're getting people wired up for this stuff, and then if you pull the project, it's like it looks bad. Like it looks bad on the company, it looks bad on.
But the other part that wasn't an issue when it was an independent company is you got to keep those stock prices up and making sure people are
exactly. So that's what I mean. Like it's a different world now. It's like they have to do that because they're under the gun to make those. Hype. To make those announcements, drive the investors,
Yeah, but that's just a short-term way of thinking because
is
now
that what Disney wants?
Expect everything to be canceled.
It's a short-term way of thinking, but that's why they have to have enough output to drive the franchise, right? So that's why every year we've got
all
like
these
2 or 3
new shows
things.
we had to cancel. But what if we do another Darth Maul show? What if we bring back Darth Maul again? If
you think about all the things that were announced at conventions and Disney expos under Kathy's oversight, I guess, or overwatch or whatever you want to, whatever word you want to use. We're talking, what was that one that got outsourced or like sold off and nothing ever really came about it for now? It was like children of something.
Corn.
No, it's based on a book.
Was it a Star Wars project?
Yes. Lando was one of them.
Children of
where
Lando?
He was looking for his daughter.
Oh, was it that? Was there speculation?
It's not a Star Wars project. It had something. It was. Here. Children of Blood and Bone.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So Children of Blood and Bone.
Didn't she? If I'm not mistaken, Kathleen Kennedy announced they were going to do that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
And then a different company did it. Right?
I don't even know what happened with that. Like, I feel like it was like, there was an announcement somewhere that then that got outsourced or sold off or whatever. But originally they were going to be producing this into a show or a movie or whatever. So none of that happened.
But
Lando,
but the show came out.
Children of Blood and Bone.
Yeah.
If it did come out, I'm not aware of it.
I'm pretty sure. Am I crazy?
No idea, dude. But I never heard of it coming out. I know there was a Children of the Corn, but that's totally different. There was the Star Wars: A Droid Story that was supposed to be an R2-3PO animated project or something about them somewhere in the timeline doing something. There was the Young Lando with Donald Glover. Nothing really came about that. We had the Rogue Squadron movie with being directed by Patty Jenkins, also an announcement that they preemptively announced and then canceled at a later time.
It's in production right now with a different company.
Okay, yeah, so it's still in the works then. Okay. That's Children of Blood and Bone. Rangers of the New Republic, that was also canned as well. Willow came out for one season, then later canceled. And then there was, of course...
Rogue Squadron.
I already mentioned that with Patty Jenkins. And then that was pretty much it. And then, of course, we've had a lot of other announcements at a later time.
Wasn't there going to be a duo, the sequel to Solo?
Well, there was the Lando series that turned into a movie.
Okay. I guess that was just speculation on our behalf.
Yeah, the Lando series.
It felt like they were leading up the Solo movie.
They announced several different writers for that series.
Okay.
Because his brother, the actor who played Lando, Charles Gambino.
Alden Ehrenreich?
No. Lando.
Stephen Glover.
Oh, right.
Donald Glover and Stephen Glover were writing it.
He replaced the original writer, and the original writer was like, I wasn't told I was fired.
We also had an announcement about Simon Kinberg.
Confusing.
Simon Kinberg was allegedly going to be producing 3 films in Star Wars at some point. That's still like an announcement that nothing's still come out of it. There was the Rian Johnson announcement after The Last Jedi came out saying that he would come off and do his own set of films. And then that only recently was officially now, I guess, reconfirmed as we're no longer pursuing that. Mm-hmm. There was or is still the New Jedi Order announcement about the Rey movie that's supposed to still allegedly come out. Right, they brought Daisy Ridley on stage. Shanad Abad Chinoy or some the writer director of Miss Marvel. She was supposed to be helming that project, but they've now changed the writer like 2 or 3 times. There's
That's become a common problem in a lot of Hollywood right now, right?
Yeah.
Writers are just
Yeah, and and it happens, right? Like that happened with The Force Awakens. Like we had Michael Arndt, who wrote Toy Story 3. He was adapting George's outline for Episode 7, and then they scrapped his ideas. He disappeared.
JJ came in and did a rewrite.
Exactly with Kasdan.
Kasdan, yeah.
James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi, like you mentioned, announced. Who knows if that'll happen? Dave Filoni's movie. Who knows if that's going to happen now that he's doing the new job?
Dave Filoni movie.
Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie. Yeah, who knows,
Avengers.
right? yeah, the Mand Avengers. But yeah, like who knows if that's going to happen now that he's got his new job? Taika Waititi. There was a new announcement about him doing a movie. Nothing's come about that either. Sean Levy's Star Wars movie is going to be Starfighter. That one actually did happen, but it was announced and. They did that one properly. It's like, guess what? Sean Levy's doing a Star Wars movie. We're shooting it in fall, and it's going to come out in 2 years. Here's Ryan Gosling. Here's some
so
pictures.
far away, yeah.
Boom. Like, it was like, yes, now that's how you do an announcement.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because it was already started and like
it was greenlit.
It's going to happen.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but there was a brief period before they started filming where it sounded like it was canceled.
Sean Levy?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Because I think they said at one point that, no, we're not talking to Sean Levy, and there was a whole argument back and forth.
They may have been trying to debunk the rumors before they made the announcement.
Okay. Yeah, that probably is exactly.
Because they wanted to save that for celebration. Yeah, Japan. But yeah, anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's the only time that's like they've made the announcement, it's actually happening, you know? And they do that with the animated shows. They don't just talk loosely about, hey, we're going to do this animated show, other than the R2D2 thing,
R2D2
a little while ago. Yeah, the droid story or whatever. But
this is news to me.
I just mentioned it like 5 minutes ago, but yeah, like again, it's like, it's like you wait until there's a product and then you announce it. People can get excited, and then you actually deliver. And it's like
George will, or not George. Do you think Dave will approach this differently?
I hope so, because James Gunn is doing that. Like he was sick and tired of that with Marvel, and it's like now he's only green lighting a movie when the script is done. He's read it. It's approved. We're going to make this. We have the funding.
Yeah.
It's happening. This is how it's done, right? And that's the announcements that we're gonna get. We're gonna release them after we announce them, of course, after they're made. But unless something like terrible happens in midway, like it's happening, right? Like if they announce it, it's happening. So
that's what it should be. I hope Dave makes that approach. I feel like my gut reaction is he will do that unless there's some sort of weird outside pressure from like Disney or something.
I think there will be pressure, but I think he'll stand up to it because he's always been a little bit more tight to the chest with
exactly.
what he does.
Kind of with everything. He's really good at talking and giving you no information.
He should be a politician.
Well, you gotta wait for that.
Well, with George, let me go off some big rant.
We do these things called episodes. Just show up every week and watch.
Yeah, like if you ask Dave, pick a favorite color, like green or blue. Well, there's different shades of blue, and you could argue that some of them are actually green. And so I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, but not quite blue. It's more of a teal.
But not
that would
red.
But not red. There's a little bit yellow in there.
In Mandarin, blue and green are the same color.
There you go.
Just blew my mind.
And that's something Dave would say. Well, in a world somewhere, they're one and the same.
So deep.
Yeah. Okay. So, big news. It
is. I'm really curious to see if there's going to be a shift in direction and how soon. Because I don't think it'll be like terribly soon, but because I think there's a lot of we want everything to transition to be kosher and give Kathy the honor that she's due for all the work that she did do through this transitionary period from Disney.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how long until we start to figure out a roadmap after Starfighter. I'm very curious to see what's next.
I am too, and I think we'll probably start to see some of the fruit from this transition at Celebration 2028, 2027.
It's going to be even bigger now.
It's going to be even bigger now.
And, that being said, it's totally possible that they just say nothing.
Yeah.
Because they want to make a bigger plan first.
Right.
Which would be disappointing if we go there in the heavens, but
Yeah, but
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's a lot of, and here's the thing, and like we're kind of leaving out part of the equation here that it is a split role. So Lin-Wen Brennan, who has been in with the company since 1999, is going to be taking that seat at the on the more political side of things, the more technological side of things, I guess, and financial, the more financial side of things as well. Co-president, and
that is actually a point to bring up is the budgets for these movies have really spun out of control.
Yeah, it's really gone up a lot, right?
And that's, I mean, I get with the era of Marvel that we kind of was like across the board thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of needed to. I mean, with the prices of everything going up constantly.
Yeah, that too.
If you make a movie for $1 billion now, it's $500 million 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. So are we going back to the era of everything being plywood with paint on it?
It's cute. You think we're not in that era.
It's because we replaced it all with CG.
Just paint it blue.
Yeah,
even if it is there, it gets replaced.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Lin-Wen is taking over that role, right? And so I think there's going to be a lot of communication between Dave and Lin-Wen, and so there will be a bit of pressure still from Disney as to whether or not they want to go through with something. And we did hear earlier last year or midway through last year about the canceled Hunt for Ben Solo script, which was canceled from being greenlit only simply because people at the this is allegedly, but simply because people on the board at Disney did not buy into the fact that Ben Solo could have survived. And I guess if we're rolling with what we saw in episode 9, it's like, yeah, I totally see that. At the same time, I don't know how far this goes back that they may have changed some things or whatever, right? Like I don't know like what the deal is there, but apparently that was the reason it just didn't happen. Was like they didn't get the approval from Disney, and so there's still that final say that is
Bob
above
Iger's desk.
Yeah, so like even though Dave is in charge, it doesn't mean that he's the end all be all. There's still Bob Iger, there's still Alan. There's still the board at Disney, and that's still the final say, the final stamp, right? Because they're the ones with the money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still going to be complicated.
Well, yeah, it's certainly not going to be what it was in the George era. But you could argue that that's what Dave was dealing with when he was working under George for Clone Wars anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with animation too, a lot of those shows, the risks that they've been able to take within the shows have been greater because I think the risk from a financial point of view is a lot lower. And so the storytelling can be a bit more flexible and a bit more risky because it's like, who's going to go see a movie? If you take like the whole Mortis God trilogy of episodes that were really great, or the Pon Krell episodes that were really great, or the Resurrection of Maul, and you just like made that a movie. To us who are big fans of those stories, like you'd think like that would be amazing.
Pon Krell live action would be
right. That would be amazing. But like from a Hollywood point of view, it's like
it's so expensive.
Does that actually work? So like would that make money? Like would that make Disney a lot of money? It's like probably not, right? Like that works better on a small screen. Like when but it's risk free. It's like, okay, we get to tell this really cool story. And it's just another great episode for the week. And it's like, we got to pump out 22 of these in a season. So, like go for it, right?
A budget for assets and stuff too, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't really have quite the same level of control that Disney would have. Like they probably just don't care. It's like, oh, you're going to make a new Darth Maul. Like that sounds cool. Do it. Like they probably don't care on what happens on a weekly basis. Yeah. People like Darth Maul. They're like done. Right. What's the budget? Oh yeah. Fine. You know what I mean? More content for Disney Plus. Good for us, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever that easy.
So I think with Dave, all I'm trying to say is I think
welcome to Netflix. You're greenlit.
I think whatever Dave does
for one season only.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still just keep in mind. It's like, okay, there's still some filters there. There's still some hoops to jump through, and the things that he would like to do, he might still not get a chance to do, depending on if these other people say yes or no. Did you guys have anything else to bring up today?
I think those were the big ones.
Yeah, I would say so.
Have we recorded a whole episode?
Yeah.
We're at 40 minutes. There was a lot to talk about. It's a big deal.
Hey, and we're the ADD twins.
And you didn't even bring up any of the bots.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's exciting news for, I guess, another shift, and you know, but yeah, it's. I mean, I feel like a lot of people still look fondly on the last 14, 15 years.
That's
however long
crazy.
it's been
That long.
It is crazy, and you know, Kathy's like older than George now compared to when George passed the torch. You know, she's
Really?
older now. Yeah. And
Man,
so
George just looks so much older. Physically.
I mean, Star Wars, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, he started having panic attacks during A New Hope. So like,
Yeah.
Fair.
He was hospitalized, right? So it's like, okay, you know. So he's been through it. But yeah, I guess if Dave shows up at the next celebration with a full head of white hair, we'll know something's going on.
You mean Kathy?
No, with his new job.
Oh, sorry, Dave.
The stresses of the
For
new
some reason
job.
I pictured George when you said that. Yeah, I guess maybe Dave will start to look more and more like George.
Yeah,
Assimilate
exactly.
into George.
He'll start wearing a lot more plaid
Yeah,
for years,
jeans.
there'll just be this husk sitting there.
right. I'm actually, that makes me wonder. I wonder how often Dave would be in reaching out to George's opinion on stuff. Compared
Oh,
to Kathy.
I'm sure
I'm sure Kathy did too, but George and Dave are so close.
they stay in touch. You know, like I'm sure.
There's like a bat phone or something.
Yeah. I wonder, and you know, it's. I think a lot of that stuff is also like it's a behind closed door situation with George. Like he's not a very public kind of personality,
For sure.
and so I think he would prefer that if he did have conversations with Dave about things, like Dave probably is very conscious of that and knows not to talk about it, and you know, it's like, hey, this is what George told me on the phone like last week. You know,
Neither of them bring that up.
yeah. So
The thing I'm looking forward to the most about Dave Filoni kind of taking the reins is I think that the agendas will no longer be beating us over the heads. They'll be more in the background like they were with the original trilogy where, hey, we're giving you a message. There's going to be morals. There's going to be lessons. We're not making it the only thing that you're going to be paying attention to.
right, yeah, that's definitely something worth keeping in mind. Yeah.
Unless Disney mandates it.
That's true. I wonder how those conversations are going to go over, though, right? Because now he's got a partner in crime to head this company with, and I wonder if maybe there's a bit of a filter there now, you know, with Linwin, yeah, with you know, being there as a buffer, hopefully, and to help him out because they're working together on this, and I think it's just such a great way to take the company into a new era, you know, with taking that role and dividing it into the two necessary roles that it needs to operate in the best functional way possible.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. And then one of those people being very experienced, having worked with George for many years, having known Star Wars very well for many years, having been a fan himself for a lifetime. I feel like this is a good fit, you know? So
Depends on how well they're aligned.
True.
yeah. But Brandon's been around since Phantom Menace. It's got to count for something. So she knows George very well as well.
And Dave, was he in the director role for Mandalorian Grogu? Like, at least, or part of it?
No.
No? Is that okay? I'm curious if he's gonna, similar to George, start to step in occasionally into a director position because he can make the call now.
Yeah. Well, he's supposed to do a movie, but you know, I guess we'll see what happens with that with his new job. I mean, now he's leading a company, so who knows,
That's
right?
the thing,
But
being director for time consuming.
yeah,
I'm good with more Favreau Star Wars.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like really, when Favreau takes the lead and is heavily involved, that seems to be the best Star Wars we're getting.
Book of Boba.
He wasn't heavily involved. Oh, that's what this feels like when I do it to you.
Book of Boba, written by Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in, and we will see you on the next episode of Star Wars Escape Pod.
See you out there. Keep flying.
Sakura.
Who?
I've spoken.
All right. Thank you so much to our listeners at home. We appreciate you all, and we also really appreciate any likes, subscribes. Find us on YouTube with the handle at SW Escape Podcast. Links are all in the description below, and you can find the podcast archives link on there. You can find a link to the Mandarian's YouTube channel on there. You can find links to Orbitkey's Disney collection on there. So definitely check that out, and you can find us everywhere else where you find a podcast on the internet. So shoot us your thoughts with our email. We'd love to hear from you. And may the Force be with you.